says you're connected. I should be able to hear you.
There,
There you
there we
go.
go. Can I hear you?
Yeah, you can. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. I can. I've never
Cool.
used the Zoom app here before, so
No. Well, we're good to go. Everything's set up, and
right
yeah.
on. Yeah, I feel like one of those guys ranting on Facebook sitting in my truck with the front-facing camera, but the house I've got, my wife works from home, so she's always on calls and stuff, and I got dogs and my kid and I'm
Yeah.
just and her grandma's visiting. I'm like, I'm gonna go out to the truck.
Yeah. No, it's so long as it's quiet at work, so it makes for good space
Yeah,
for
man.
conversation. Cool. Um, yeah. I guess so. The name Michael or Mule. What do you prefer?
Yeah, man. My given name is Michael. Most
Okay.
of my friends, depending on where I know them from, go by Mike or Mule. Either or. Stage name, if you will. If I tell myself I'm cool enough for one of those, Mule is what a lot of people introduce me as and know me as. So
Nice. Well, Mule, pleasure to meet you.
you as well.
Aiden through yeah, I don't know. I kind of one day I was sitting and I was just like I wish there was something out there for musicians to have conversations and get heard and just
Yeah, man.
connect
I mean,
and yeah.
it's especially yeah. I mean, like outside of my little, within probably 100 mile or so radius of myself, it's like who knows me, but it's like it's really cool because I love one of the things I love about all the traveling I've done all around the country. I mean, I've been to pretty much everywhere in the continental U.S. playing is a. I love meeting like if we have other local bands are playing. I love meeting people from the local scenes, and I always got to the local music stores or
Yeah.
if we go out to eat and stuff. I love going to the local diner. Like I love visiting the local culture, meeting the local people everywhere you go because it's always different yet kind of the same. Like we all have this thing called music we bond over, and I love
Yeah.
it.
So I guess with that being said, it sounds like you're a well-traveled musician, so I guess tell me a little bit about how you started and what brought you to, I guess, becoming a touring musician.
It's a. I'll kind of start at the beginning.
Sure.
It's my story's kind of wild. It jumps in directions, but we'll get. I started out like a lot of people as a kid playing in church.
Cool.
I attended the church of the family, and about the age 9, 10 years old, I started taking an interest in what the drummer was doing. Like man, that looks cool.
Yeah.
Because I to this day, I mean, it's funny. I tell people all the time, there's nothing I love more than watching like a phenomenal guitar player, especially like a country player, like a chicken picker that's just on top of his game play. But I can't understand it. My mind doesn't comprehend. But I was all those years I was like drums. I think I can do that, because I'd sit there and kind of shadow, air drum, of
Yeah.
course, all wrong along with the guy. But like, I think I could do this. This would be fun. And me, being 9, 10-year-old kid, went up and started talking to this dude, and he instead of kind of like brushing me off or whatever, he was awesome. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, come up here, and he took me up, right from the first day. I caught him when they came off stage, and after the service he took me up and showed me behind his kit, and
Cool.
showed me everything and stuff, and it just, I mean, it lit a fire. I was like, this is
Yeah.
incredible. And he would let me sit behind him in the services and watch him,
Hmm.
watch him play. And I had asked him numerous times. I was like, can you teach me? And he's like, man, I'm not a teacher, and there's a huge difference between being a player and a teacher.
Yeah.
Uh, but he ended up referring me to a guy. I grew up in Southwest Missouri. We're in the Branson area, if you're
Cool.
familiar at all, or if anyone out there is. I mean, it's there's an old joke to say it's where country music careers go to die. But
Got it.
in the early '90s, Branson was I mean, it was a booming happening place. I mean, there were some legit stars and stuff there. But either way, so
Hmm.
I started taking lessons. I'm 10 years old. I still remember took my first lesson on May 7th was the date. I remember I
Cool.
wrote it down. I kind of journaled and kept that, and I remember it was May 7th of that would have been '94 because that's the year that I turned 10. And
Before I was born, I'll say that.
it make me feel like the old guy. It's
Yeah.
a little side. It's funny because when I started playing like on a pro level, whatever you want to say, I was always the youngest guy in the band, the youngest and far most inexperienced, which is a great thing, playing with, they say if you're the best musician on stage, you're on the stage with the wrong people kind of thing.
Right.
So I had the great fortune of learning and behind all these great players. But now as I get older, I'm 39 now, I find myself on stage and I'm you start realizing I'm the old guy,
Mm-hmm.
which is it's a weird kind of pivotal point in life. But
Yeah. But
um,
I guess it
so
also it offers you a cool perspective to kind of be that sort of the drum guy who brought you behind and gave you the opportunity to like really
yes, and
find that love
you
of
know
music.
now I find kids, who I see my that 10-year-old kid that I was, they come up to me and stuff, and I'm like, I'm not that old, and then I'm like, no, I am.
Yeah.
I'm 10 years older than the guy was, that I went to for that. But
Right.
so I started taking the lessons.
Mhm.
Took lessons from the time I was 10 till I was like 13. Went through all the formal training, all your rudiments, chart reading, all your, all the core stuff. I never did like actually I didn't even do the public school thing. My mom was kind of a religious fanatic and did the homeschool thing for those reasons. That's a
Okay.
whole other topic. But
Yeah.
so I never had the opportunity, to play like the school band, the marching band, or anything,
Right.
which I see as good and bad, because the good of it is all my lessons and instruction, were from private professionals, one on one.
Right.
So I did that. Took the lessons, for a few years. Then during that time, once I started understanding, a little bit about music and being able to keep beats and songs and structure the songs and everything, that guy at the church, he got a bunch of percussion items, tambourines, shakers, even like some congas, some suspended cymbals, all kinds of various hand percussion, and started showing me how to play it and would let me play the auxiliary cushion behind him in service.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Cool.
I'm sitting there and you learn one thing, as anyone who's ever played in a church, especially this was like the full gospel, church, like it's the kind of the crazy church type thing, if you will.
Yeah.
And the music was never, the only thing you knew is how the song was going to start, and from there it was just kind of winging it.
Right.
And so I mean, you really learned how, even though I play no instruments aside from drums, but I can listen to songs, and I can hear the chord progression. I can just feel where they're going a lot of the times. You
Mm-hmm.
listen to the vocal, you learn to actively listen.
Yeah.
And man, that those years were the best education I ever got, as far as, because it taught you how to play with other musicians. And not because I mean, I could read a chart at that point for sure. I mean, I you throw a chart in front of me and I can play it, just like reading a book every time.
Mm-hmm.
But if they deviate from that chart, a lot of people, and I was in that camp at the time, I don't know what to do. It's like,
Yeah.
if I don't have the script in front of me, I'm not good at this whole this whole ad libbing, making it up on the spot thing, this improv.
Totally.
And that really taught me how to do that.
So,
Um,
for I guess how many years were you learning before you kind of started to feel more comfortable playing with others and in
uh,
groups and stuff?
um, I'd say a few years. And
Yeah.
that's just because, again, I could sit down behind a kit, and I could play on a chart, all this stuff, and I'm then playing the hand percussion, everything. I was really learning about what the songs. Because this guy that I was playing behind, I mean, he was a long time accomplished drummer. He
Cool.
used to play back in the all through the 80s, and I believe into the early 90s, with a really popular band, like in the bluegrass gospel world. I mean, they won some big awards within that scene. They played, all the big Nashville venues, the Opry and all that stuff. So I mean, he was a legit professional.
Cool.
And so watching him, I mean, watching a true professional work the craft, and especially if it's something you want to do, you learn so much more from watching somebody and actively paying attention than a thousand lessons, because it's
Right.
on the job training, so to speak.
Right.
But the next step I got was I started playing. There was a little youth band that would do their thing on like Wednesday nights. We play like three songs, and I started playing drums on that. And
Cool.
the first couple times, the same guy, he's like, got songs, and I'm like, man, I'm scared to death. Like, and so
Yeah.
we go in there, and he would sit down with me. He's like, all right, he's like, this stuff, how to play all of this. Like, if it was written down, you could do it. He's like, but now, you're pulling, like, think of all this stuff you've read, all this knowledge, like that's just deposits in your bank. That's in the memory. He's like, now you got to reach in and find that stuff and pull from it. He's like, and
Mm-hmm.
you have the ability and the knowledge there. You gotta learn how to how to withdraw and use it. So
Totally.
I started playing. That was about I'd say, yeah, between 3 and 4 years from the time I started taking lessons till I actually sat behind a full kit and was the man, the guy anchoring the band.
Yeah.
And it was a youth band, of all guys, in our early to mid teens. I mean, none of us were, any kind of prodigies or phenoms or anything. I mean, we all sucked, but we sucked together.
Yeah,
You learn together and you
of
get better
course.
together. And like I remember, you've probably a lot of people have heard, it says this, Dave Grohl quote once is like,
Hmm.
the best way to learn music is like go and find just whatever crappy instruments you can afford, find them, get them, set up with some of your friends. They'll have their crappy instruments, and you all just make noise and you suck. He's
Yeah,
like, and you keep playing and you suck some more. He's like, but
uh,
eventually it starts coming together. He's like, there's no substitute for that. And
totally.
that's kind of how it went. Then I started where if the main drummer at the church, if he couldn't make it for whatever reason, they would I would fill in. I would sub for him,
Cool.
and I did that all the way up till I was 18. My all my playing was done like at the church,
Hmm.
in various settings. They had services and events several nights a week and stuff, so I would get to play a fair amount. Um, then at 18, I joined the service. I joined the Marine Corps.
Wow.
18 now, I joined in 2002, and
Okay.
I was in from '02 to '06. So that kind of put a lot of playing on the back burner
Yeah, I
because
was gonna
that was
say,
right when the whole
oh,
Iraqi war and
right.
invasion stuff was kicking off, and I was actually I was there, from day one of that, and I spent over 2 years of my 4 years in deployed in Iraq.
Wow.
So there wasn't really much playing to be had, of course, and
Hmm.
but I did meet a couple guys while I was in the service, and the few months stints at a time we were stateside, and we would get together and we would play. But it was a
Hmm.
complete 180 from the music I had played growing up. The
Right.
church, the gospel, and a lot of it like the southern, like a lot of the stuff I played, was the fast gospel, like not the old hymns. Like I mean,
Right.
stuff that to this day, I mean, it's fun. And if you hear a great gospel band, those guys have chops. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
they're good.
Oh yeah.
And but this guy that I linked up with, him, it was a guitar player slash singer, more of a screamer, really. A bass player and me, and it was heavy stuff. I mean, it was like Deftones or like early
Okay.
Deftones, kind of like just raw, like rock stuff I'd never
Screamo
really played.
metal, kind of more in that range of things, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it really like it completely kind of again, which is always a good thing, took me out of my comfort zone and forced me. Now I got to learn this stuff.
Right.
So I started diving into all these bands, all these rock bands of the time. The which of course I had listened to. The Alice in Chains, the Nirvana. The Deftones. The Corrosion of Conformity was another one we really liked. But all these like
Well,
kind of raw kind of rock bands, from the grunge era and stuff. And
yeah.
so I started really like digging. Like, man, these guys, they play different. They play hard, and they play simple fills, but they're powerful, and the music is totally different. And did that a little bit while I was in.
Hmm.
Um, but then when I got out of the Corps, I got out in June of 2006, moved back home to Branson, and I went like I had been home maybe 2 weeks, and a guitar player that I knew, again, guy that I'd met from the church, he was in that youth band set up with me. He played at for a Branson. I'm not sure people who don't know. There's a lot of live music theaters, and it's geared at people who are twice my age and then some. It's the
Right.
old people mecca. But um, there was a morning gospel show there, show slash service. They called it the Grand Old Gospel Hour.
Cool.
And my buddy was like, "Hey man, not sure if it's something you'd be interested in, but there's this show they do it. It's a 90-minute thing. You play for about an hour. Because they do the introductions. You play, then there's a 15-minute intermission. Play it out. So the actual play time's about an hour. It's like it's gospel kind of stuff. Like, but it's a morning thing. It's I believe it was a 10 o'clock show. Like 10 to 11:30 or something. It was like, but it pays at the time it paid $75 a show. They had a house kit and everything set up, and I'm like, yeah, I'll play anything, especially if you're paying me and I'm able to add it to my bank of experience, and add it to what I can do.
Hmm.
I'm in. So I did, and it kind of went back to what my original formal training. There were charts there, like full score charts too. It wasn't like shorthand charts. So
Right.
full score charts. click track, because I mean the show had everything had to be precise down to the down to the second
Oh yeah.
for their times and stuff. So I did that for I did that for probably about it was the rest of that season. So that the season ended like in December, so I guess it would have been about 6 months or so I did that.
Cool.
Then everything's seasonal there from December till about end of February, beginning of March. There's nothing going on in town there. So
Gotcha.
in that time when that ended, I did the unemployment thing for a little bit, and then the beginning of '07, I went to work at the Guitar Center in Springfield, Missouri, which is a decent sized town, about a half hour north of Branson. So
Cool.
went to work. Go ahead.
I just said
Oh,
cool. Continue. Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to work at the Guitar Center in there,
Mhm.
and that is what really kind of launched me into being able to be like a working pro drummer, just because I was the drum guy in there, and like with him I had been there maybe a week, and dude comes in and he's got his little son there, and they're messing around on the kits and driving me insane like people do in Guitar Center. It's like you, even as a drummer, you can only listen to people wail for so long before you just want to lose your mind.
Yeah.
But he was a super nice guy, and he ended up coming to me, and we just talked forever. And he's like, man, he's like, I got a feeling about you. You seem like you know what you're talking about. He's like, can I get your number? I was like, yeah, you betcha. And we had kind of talked about how I grew up in the area. And he's like, all right, cool, man. So he said his goodbyes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then my old buddy, his name was Jr., the guy from the church.
Yep.
Jr. texts me a couple hours later. He's like, I got a phone call about you earlier. I'm like, what? Like, what did I do now? Who's looking for me?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, David Creech, who was this guy that came in, who was a unfortunately he passed away a few years ago. David did, but he was a he was somebody in the guitar world, especially like the Christian gospel and the session scene. I mean, he had played and done albums with just about anybody and everybody in that scene. I mean,
Wow.
world class player,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the guy who had done a bunch of the tours and recording with Jr's band back in the '80s and '90s, and I had no idea when I met him. And
Cool.
he called Jr. and was like, "Hey, I met a guy. Do you know him?" And of course, Jr. was like, "I've known him his whole life." And
Yeah.
he's like, "I get a feeling of him." He's like, "I'm putting together a new show in Branson." He's like, "I get a good feeling about him. Do you think I could hire him?" And Jr. probably he's like, would he be good enough? Can he handle, And Jr. gave me one of the best compliments you can get as a musician. Not, oh, dude, he's got the stickest chops. He's got this. He's like, absolutely. He's like, he will play exactly what you want him to, exactly what you need, nothing more, nothing less. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he'll lay in the pocket. He'll play, if you want him to do more, he'll do more. Like, yeah, he's like, he's absolutely like, he's he'll do it. So that dude calls me up, and it was just a couple mornings a week. They did it. It was a Sunday thing because it was kind of a service that was geared toward the tourists coming into Branson. Then they did it was a Wednesday or Thursday, I think, but it was another like mid morning thing a week, and it was $100 show kind of thing again. It was a 2 hour show this one, but about 90 minutes playtime, and
Mm-hmm.
but I walked in there the first morning. There's a bass player named Randy Hall who was the first just absolute pro bass player I've ever worked with. I mean, like human metronome. I mean, his pocket was so, they say pocket so deep you could drill for oil at the bottom of it. Like,
That's cool.
just absolute machine. And he plays for the there's a country group called the Bellamy Brothers who have been huge since like the '70s. Yeah, they're
Okay.
you know in the country they were a huge thing, and they still are. I mean, they've had a bunch of number ones over the years, but he plays for them now. Um, but I walk in there, meet him, and but David hands me these charts, and I'm expecting, just full score charts like I've looked at, but no, they're Nashville number system charts.
That's
If you're not
different.
familiar with that,
Yeah, I'm not.
man, look it up. There's a couple great, there's some great books on it. Jim Riley, who's actually the who was, well, I guess they're not a thing anymore, but the band leader and the drummer for Rascal Flatts, he has a book out on it, and basically what it is you take in whatever the key, the root note of the song is, that's your one, and
Okay.
so it'll be, instead of having a it's just they you count it's hash marks, like each number is a measure, and that's your chord, and this but it's basically, I
Interesting.
mean, you can hand somebody a chart who doesn't really know how to read music, you just teach them how to do it. And I mean, nail song first pass. I mean, that's like it was
Right.
invented for the Nashville Session War, where they're like, all right, we got 3 hours, we got to get 6 songs down. Here we go, bam, and everybody plays it at once.
Right.
But I looked at this and I was like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
Like, is this math class? It looked like algebra to me.
Mhm.
And he's like, no, he sat and broke it down to me. I mean, he's like, good thing is, he's like, as a drummer, you don't have to worry about what the number is, the 1, 4, 5, whatever. He's like, all you're doing is counting the measures. And he showed me how, like, this is, measures, like if it's split like this, that's still, then there's, hash marks on top, carrot top, they signify different kind of stops and stuff. And it
Okay.
really is the most efficient song charting system, because you can sit there, someone who knows how to do it. I've watched many guys do it before shows. Artist we're playing for will pop and be like, hey, can we do this song tonight? Like, yeah, give me 5 minutes. And we'll pull the song up, and they'll just sit there in real time, write the chart out, hand it, and we'll play it, and done.
Cool.
It's yeah, incredibly efficient. But
Mhm.
so I started playing with those guys, and they really, that was like, I felt like a little league player trying to hit a major league pitcher.
Right.
Like, I was just so far out of my element, but at the same time, I knew, just stay, don't, you're not going to impress these guys with any of, your cool guy stuff.
Yeah.
Just, and played that for, and it made me grow so much as a player, and learn what not to play, even a lot of, and just really learn about, laying a good pocket and a good backbeat, when there's nothing like it when a drummer and a bass player really just truly lock in together, and
Oh
can
yeah.
and can
Uh,
and can feed off each other, and know where the other one's going.
totally.
And so I was doing that, and then still working obviously at the Guitar Center. Then the next guy I met at Guitar Center comes in, and he sits down at one of the drum kits, starts playing it, and I could tell immediately, the guy's a pro. You can tell immediately when someone sits down.
For
I
sure.
mean, and he kind of stops, because it was a little Pearl Vision kit, not a fancy kit, like $700 kit I think at the time. And he plays it for a couple seconds, stops, and he looks up. He's like, "Hey, are you the one who tuned this up?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Dude, these things sound phenomenal." And I'm like, "Cool, thanks, man." And we just kind of made some small talk. He introduced himself. He's like, "My name's Brad Allen." I'm like, "Okay, what's you know what's your story? Who you play for around here? Just salesman talk." And he's like, "I actually just got the call like the day before. Joe Diffie of '90s country fame. He's like, he's coming to Branson to do a residency show for a few months. Like, and I got the call to play for him. And Joe, he passed away in the beginning of like in 2020 from the COVID thing. And
Mhm.
but Joe, I mean, he was like legit star. I mean, I forget, he had a bunch of number one hits, a lot of top 10 albums.
Well,
He was really somebody, and so he's like, I was like, dude, that's awesome. I mean, I've listened to Joe's music, loved him since I was a kid. And he's like, well, because come down to the show, because Brad's day job was just down, like, I think like 4 or 5 doors down the shopping center from where the Guitar Center was that I worked at. So
cool.
he would come and pick me up, and I would ride down to the show with him in Branson, going back in the dressing room and everything. And met Joe the first time, super nice dude. And like all of us drummers, we never get to hear what our stuff sounds like through the front of house mix.
Right.
And so Brad was like, man, would you do you want to play with these guys? You want to play a few of the songs in sound check? And of course, I'm right back to being that guy who was just asked to play songs with the band the first time. I'm like, dude, these are like all ace level players, like first call Nashville session dudes up here on the stage. Like, yeah, I guess. Like, but I mean, I was like, yeah, sure. But I mean, I was like, I just wanted to like crawl through a hole in the floor and go hide.
Right.
But I did, which, man, what a surreal feeling, even though it was just a sound check. But, getting to play on the stage with the guy who, I've been listening to since I was a little kid, like, because the show opener was a song Joe Diffie has called Third Rock from the Sun. And
Mhm.
so we went through that one. Then there was another one. It's the most ridiculous song ever written. And it was written by him and a guy named Billy Dean, who later on I actually had a chance to meet and do the same kind of sound check thing, because I knew his drummer also. They were both '90s country fame, but they were on a deadline. The publishing companies like, hey, we want, we need this many songs turned in by Friday, working on the next album material. And it was like toward the end of the day, Friday, I guess. And they were just like, we got nothing, So it's like, let's write the dumbest thing we can possibly come up with and send it to them and just see what happens, just kind of, be like, that's what you get, guys.
Yeah.
And they wrote a song called Good Brown Gravy,
Okay.
and it is just the most ridiculous song that's ever been written.
I can imagine.
It's a little country shuffle tempo, like it's, and we played that, and I mean, it was so cool to get to be on the stage. Granted, it was to I think like a 1,500 seat theater with nobody in it because it was sound check, but still, playing with these legends.
Yeah.
That was like it was kind of a life changing moment. Even more so, it's like, man, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
Like,
Was that like
I
sort
want to.
of along the path when that sort of thought maybe came in of like, this is like, I made it? Like, this feels like everything's kind of come to this sort of a thing?
Not necessarily I made it, because I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, I was the tag along dude with the actual drummer, but it
Right.
was more of a, I can do this. It was a
Right.
realization of, everyone thinking like, I would love to do it, but can I? Am I good enough? But
Right.
then getting through those songs, and not having any issues, I mean, everything locked in with the click, locked in with the band, because the lights and everything were coordinated with this, and everything just going great. I mean, it was really a moment where it's like, okay, I can do this. I really can.
Right.
And so after that, I ended up, and I said, I bounced around. I bounced around a bunch for a while when I got the service. I then at the end of the 2008 Branson season stuff, things were getting real slow again and everything. And one of my good buddies from the Marine Corps was living in Fort Worth, Texas, and he was a company man, like a high up exec in an oil field company.
Okay.
And big 180 from music, of course. But he's like, hey man, I know it's the off time up there and everything. He's like, you need to make some good, quick, easy money. He's like, I can get you a job down here, Texas, oil field. He's like, your base pay will be like 50K. He's like, but you're like, you get tons of overtime hours and stuff. He's like, you'll, realistically, you'll make, 80 plus K, like, man, that's hard to say no to, especially as, mid 20s. And my wife and I were engaged. We weren't, at the time we were just engaged, weren't married yet. And
Mm-hmm.
so I talked to her and we're like, yeah, let's go down there to Texas, do this for a year or two, make some money, bank some money.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, went down there and did a bunch of sweating and swinging of sledgehammers and pipe wrenches and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
didn't obviously get to play much for 2 years because I was working, 80 hours a week or better, but I was making a bunch of money, so it was great.
Right.
Well, then where I live now, I live in central Arkansas in the middle of absolutely nowhere. I am about 40 minutes north of Little Rock. I mean, it's the closest town is about, from where I'm sitting right now at home, the closest town is about 12 miles away, and it has like less than 5,000 people in it. And I mean,
Gotcha.
that's the closest any type of town. There's like three restaurants and a little grocery store kind of place, and then
Gotcha.
Little Rock's the only place anything's really happening. But that oil field company, a bunch of they're starting to hit some natural gas up around this area, and they're like, hey, we're gonna send some crews up to Central Arkansas. Would you be in? They were taking volunteers, and most of the people down there, they were Texans and loved it there and didn't want to. But I was like, man, that's my wife's family lives there. It'd be great for her, and that's a few hours from home for me. Yeah, I'll do it.
Oh.
So I did that. Well, after about 3 months of that up here, the company owner got caught by whomever it is that is like that polices the ethics and stuff of all that, and he was taking all these landowners and stuff on like huge elaborate vacations in his private jets and all that stuff, in exchange, for being able to get the well rights on their land and stuff. And
Right.
he lost all of his. So, bam, we're all laid off. So I'm
Jeez.
like, well, this is no good. But so I ended up going back up home to Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, at this point I hadn't played music really for a couple years, meaning play at home, practice pad, but I hadn't played with people for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I need to find, something, a real job, as they say, career field stuff. And looking at my military background stuff, it's like I don't have many qualifications other than music and stuff relating to, I was an infantry guy. I was with a scout platoon. I was like, so I went to moved up to Missouri, went to the police academy, and
And how
I got into
many?
law.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
how many years ago was this about now?
That was in I moved to Missouri in like early, like late summer 2011. I moved back
Okay,
home
so
to
about
Missouri.
in the 10
Yeah, because
years. Okay, cool.
it was yeah early, like springtime 2008. I moved down to Texas.
Okay,
Did that down there until about 2010, about a couple years. Then I moved up here to Arkansas.
cool.
Was here, and then yeah, so jumped 2011, moved back home to Missouri. Used my GI, because in Missouri you can go to a police academy, a police academy independently. Um, that's through a college, get college credits, all that stuff. But I was able to use my GI Bill, my veterans benefits, to go to school,
Mm-hmm.
and so I did that. Um, got hired on with the police department,
Wow.
and but while I was working there, just doing my regular rounds and stuff, there was a venue out at the right at the edge of our town city limits. Just a little, it's called I think it was called No Name Saloon. It was a little bar, but they had like a big outdoor area set up, and they would do like big benefit shows and all that stuff.
Cool.
And well, I was patrolling one day, and they had this huge benefit going on, a bunch of people having, so we stop in, kind of just walk through the crowd, make the presence known, make sure no one's getting out of hand, and it was small town kind of thing, and you want to go and like shake some hands, meet people, and be like, hey, welcome, we're glad to have you here. It was very much not a which I know policing in the world is a very sensitive subject these days, and I there's a reason I got out of law enforcement,
Right.
and it was for a lot of the reasons people don't, but that's here or there. Like I couldn't handle a lot of the stuff that I saw happening that I thought was ethically wrong, and I was like, I can't be part of this. But
Right.
that's neither here nor there. That's not to put down
Yeah.
what people do every day.
No,
But
I hear
okay,
you.
so we went to this. While I was walking around to this event, I run into none other than Brad Allen, who's the drummer with Joe Diffie, who took me down to Branson with him.
Right.
And I was just kind of like, dude, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I'm playing with this band. And he's like, actually, he's like, come meet him. He's like, they just got back. They were on it was a duo. He's like, they were on the first season of the X Factor. He's like, they made it to like on top 10 or 12 or whatever. I don't watch those shows, but they made it, far enough, where like they were on the live tapings and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
he's and the dude from Brock, he was from the town that I worked in, and so they were there playing as part of this benefit. And so Brad introduces me to him, you know, and Brock, he's this gosh, he was young. He was like 20, I think. I remember because he wasn't like he was playing this bar and stuff, but he was only allowed to be like certain areas because he wasn't even old enough, to buy a drink or anything legally. And then
Right.
the girl that it was a duo, his boyfriend girlfriend, real pretty blonde girl, the classic, stage blonde country music girl. And
Mm-hmm.
Brad introduces me to him, and he's like, hey, this is my buddy Mike. Like he's a really really great drummer, yada yada. And it was great because musicians, we love to rag on each other, of course. And she's like, that's really good to know. And with Brad standing right there, who was playing drums for them at the time, she's like, that's really good. She's like, I've been looking for a good drummer. I'm gonna need one. So,
Nice.
um, but seed was planted, said hi, left,
Cool.
and then went about my business. Well, a couple months later, I get a message on Facebook from a dude who was their manager at the time, and he's like, "Hey, Brad Allen told me to reach out to you. Um, we have, McKenna and Brock that was the duo's names. Like they have, excuse me, they have this they have some shows coming up, and this was in it was over 4th of July period. It was 3 days in a row show. It was like I think like the third, fourth, fifth kind of thing.
Cool.
So they got um, 3 shows, 3 towns. Can you play them? And I was like, well, like, and I had plenty of PTO saved up at work, and they were great at work as long as there were, as long as there was coverage in the city and the area, like you could take your time off whenever you wanted it,
Nice.
And so I was like, well, let's talk details, man. Like I can, but how what am I going to get out of it? I mean, if I'm doing this, it's like I'm doing it to, I'm doing it for work. It's like it's job at this point kind of thing. And he's like, well, how much do you charge, to play these shows? And I looked at them and where they were. I was like, well, I'll drive myself, because one rule that I found that any young musicians want a pro tip. If you're subbing or you're playing with a new band, never ride with them. If you possible, always take your own transportation, because you never know what it's going to be like before and after the show. And I've gotten stuck
Right.
waiting around hours and hours for people to just finish getting drunk and then sobering up, or people getting in. Like, I always, even to this day, if I'm just subbing a gig, I drive myself, because I can get there, set up, play. And I mean, if I'm subbing and I'm not like part of the deal, like, it's I start tearing down. I mean, my cymbals are still ringing from the last hit of the night, and I'm like, all right, time to
Yeah.
get and go. We're on the clock.
Yeah.
And but
Interesting.
so I tell him, like, well, here's what, like, and I quote him price, like, this one is a little further away, so I told him, price for each of the shows, like, this is what it's going to cost you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm gonna need, make sure, meals are included. It's like, I don't drink, like, so I mean, you don't have to worry about me running up an alcohol tab or anything. I was like, but base pay rate, meal, and of course, water, soda, whatever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna pay for anything while I'm there, and like that.
Yeah.
And he was, of course, hee haw, and he's like, man, he's like, that's quite a bit more than we want to pay. That's the guy that we've been using, and it wasn't Brad. It was a different guy between Brad and I. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we've been paying him, $100 a night, which, that's, it's always, oh, $100 a night. I'm like, no. But
Yeah.
he's like, we've been paying him that. And I was like, and I told him, I was like, well, if you want $100 a night drummer, hire one.
Right.
I was like, but you're gonna regret it. And it sounds a little arrogant, but it's like, you gotta, you gotta close the sale, I guess. It's like, here's the
Yeah.
thing, man. It's like, I'm not, trying to talk myself up, and I'm not trying to be arrogant. I was like, but you can pay me what I am asking. I will show up and I'll play the show, and nobody out there, and probably nobody on stage even, is gonna realize I haven't been playing with these guys all along. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a professional job for you. I was like, or you can save yourself some money and you can hire the $100 a night guy, and the shows will be a disaster, and it'll make your artist look bad, and they may not get asked back, et cetera. So he's
Mm-hmm.
like, let me get back to you. So he calls up Brock, and Brock's dad was a bass player who I worked with a little bit. He was one of my best friends. Again, feel like I've said this 1,000 times throughout this already, but
That's okay.
he passed away a couple years ago as well. Like,
I don't know.
so many of these people that influence me, if that's part of being the old guy, you start losing losing people. But
Yeah.
he called them Brock. So Brock called Brian, and his dad was Brian, and then he called Brad, and he's like, should we hire Mule? And this is what he wants, is, what do you think? And they were both like, do it. They're like, seriously, he's not jerking you around.
Mm-hmm.
Pay it, pay it if you want a good show. You want, because I mean, somebody who's able to sub and do a great job subbing, I mean, they're gonna cost you, but if you want your show, to save your show, it's gonna be worth it.
Of course.
And so they call me back, and they're like, all right, man, we're on. They're like, can you rehearse or anything before these? And I was like, man, I hate to be difficult, because normally I'd be like, yeah, whenever I quote a price, I tell them like that includes one rehearsal. But with my schedule at the department, I was like, I literally have no time for that, because this wasn't long before those shows. Like, I got to work every day
Right.
leading up to, and I'm using my PTO to go play these shows. I was like, I literally don't have time for it. Like, I really don't. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, send me all the material, and of course, if there's any questions that I have, we'll hit them up in sound check or backstage. You pull out the acoustic guitar, and kind of tap on the legs, whatever, and we'll work out some parts. But you're like, okay, deal. So first show, we get there for the first show. It was a outdoor deal. Big car show, nice outdoor stage, big production, and I show up there and set drums up, and I have my charts, my little cheater charts. That's another thing that I learned actually from from the drummer who plays for Jason Aldean. I hate being the guy who sounds like the name dropper. No one likes that guy, but
That's fine.
Rich Redmond, he's a phenomenal guy, and he's like
Cool.
at the absolute top tier of his game and in his field in the country music world today. And but he's always been super cool and accessible. Like, anytime he's around, like in the same vicinity or whatever, if I'm traveling, he always makes time. We get together, we play drums, we get lunch, like, and he's showed me so many like cool just little tricks. And he's like, man, what I do when I'm subbing, he's like, you know I'm not gonna sit there and chart out full songs, all this stuff's like, could, but why bother? He's like, in your stick bag, keep a little set of like 3x5 index cards, a Sharpie, and a metronome, like a little Tom rhythm watch or some kind of metronome. Of course, now everyone has metronome apps on their phone. Like, either way, it was like, but like, man, just breeze through the song, listen to, and just make yourself little notes on those little index cards, like, and you can tape them right, or you can sit them on your bass drum there where you can see them, and you can hit all your major changes. You got your tempo, you can set that even if you don't play to it. If you're counting a song in, you're there. You can reach over and hit that every now and then and be like, oh man, I'm having a good night, I'm still on, and
Hmm.
you can sub a gig like you're the regular guy with just a little bit of prep work. So that's
Cool.
exactly what I did, and we went through the whole show, and I mean, it was just a breeze. It was
Wow.
it was awesome. And they afterwards they were like, wow, Brad and Brian, they steered us right and stuff. I'm like, well, thanks. Where's my cash?
Yeah.
Thank you for the money. And I'm bouncing. I loaded my stuff out. Him was like, I'll see you guys tomorrow at the next one.
Hmm.
And same thing. Next two shows were awesome. I told them, I was like, call me anytime. I'm always open. If I'm available, I'm open for this. Well,
Cool.
that was in a that was in like 14, I believe, when I played those shows. It might have been 13 or 14 when I played those shows with them. Well, 2015, mid 2015 is when I decided, for a few reasons, I'm done with the police department. I said, there's a lot going on behind the scenes in that world that I was like, I'm not going to be associated with this. And that's a whole other topic for a different podcast.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm like, man,
Totally.
I was like, I'm done with the law enforcement gig. I mean, when I got into it, I thought it would be what I did till the day I retired and to play music on the side. But as it turns out, personal ethics, morals, whatever, I couldn't let myself be part of some of the stuff that was happening.
Right.
So I put in my notice, left the police department, and so I'm like, man, now what am I gonna do? Because like the only skills I have involve, involve enforcing laws or playing with firearms or playing drums. Like, those are my only skill sets in life. I've never gone
Yeah.
to school for anything else. I don't like, and so the manager from that duo, McKenna and Brock, he messaged me about a week later, and he's like, "Hey man, we need we need some more shows filled in. Are you available?" And I was like, funny story is, like, if you're needing a full time guy,
Yeah.
I'm I'm wide open. And from there on, he's like, done deal.
Wow.
So I went to work for them and I was with them for a few years. We traveled, did a lot of shows all around. Like, I mean, I don't know how many states I saw with them. Probably, like 15 or so. Did some TV tapings. They released their first radio single in late 15, or it might have been 16 when they released it. But we recorded. I got to do the drums on their first radio single. That played, nationwide and even, internationally on some stuff. Which, remember the first time I was driving down the road, the story, and you hear this song here, and I'm like, holy crap, that's me on the radio. Like,
Yeah.
it's so cool. And
That's the I made it moment right there.
oh, it is. It's just really surreal. You're like, is this really happening? Because you hear everyone tell that story about the first time you hear yourself on the radio, and it's just like, and even if they know, even if it's something like, hey, they're gonna spin our song at this time, whatever, and you listen to it, even if it's coming, it's still insane to hear the DJ, introduce it, and all this stuff. And so I was with them for a few years. Um, then but in that time frame, my daughter's born in 2012. So I mean, I still have, we have my daughter, but she was going from the infant to the toddler, who now she's mobile and getting into everything. And
Right.
my wife was having quite a time, dealing with her by herself at home. while I was out on the road traveling and playing Rockstar. So I was like, I'm just thinking like, man, I might need to try to find something more local. Again, let's see what's happening in Branson. Well, the bass player and lead guitarist who were playing for Joe Diffie those nights when I did the sound checks down there with Joe, um, turns out they were starting a new show. They were, and the bass player was the musical director of this new show, and he remembered me from just playing those two songs. And he's like, "Hey man, you want a gig?" He's like, "It's a 6 night a week show. It's a 8 to 10 show, 6 nights a week. Pays 125 a show. House kit, everything's set up and stuff." I was like, "Man, and it was a cool show too. It wasn't like playing old gospel. I mean, we did
Hmm.
a lot of Motown, did some funk, it was a lot of cooler stuff, some rock stuff. It was because the show was called the Heartland Rock, and it
Cool.
was an attempt to bring more modernized music, even though the Motown not exactly, but just more upbeat, happening music that you don't want to sit there and take a nap to,
Right.
into Branson. And so I went to work and did that show, and it was great cast of musicians, fun time, but short lived because the theater owners, shady business people are everywhere, and they they fell under on their financial obligations to, I guess, the like well, I should say the people who are running the theater, not the owners, the renters or whatever. They
Right.
fell behind, and so we got shut down. Like after not very long, I was like, man, just another blow. I mean, life
Hmm.
of a struggling musician, right? It's like
Hmm.
back to the drawing board.
Yep.
So I started playing with just some local cover bands. Doing we would drive over into Oklahoma and do a bunch of the casinos and stuff. And but I mean, I was playing between a regular cover band I played with and then subbing with others because I started building a reputation of this guy can sub, and even on cover stuff, it's like he knows he knows these songs. Like, I mean, if you're up on a stage, and someone yells back, "Hey, do you know Killing Time by Clint Black?" Or, "Can you play Can't Get Enough of Your Love?" Or Nothing But a Good, just whatever song to call out, and you're like,
Hmm.
like, yeah, I know it. Like, I've got this huge oh, got truck just decided that I'd been running long enough.
Oh,
There we go.
no problem.
But but I've got my charger running to it in here. So, but
Gotcha.
anyway, started getting a real reputation of like this guy. He knows, especially in the country music world. Like, good luck calling out a song he doesn't know and can't play.
Cool.
And so I was staying busy. I mean, I was playing 4 or 5 shows a week. Making anywhere from the standard $100 a show, up to if we were playing casinos, making 300-400 a night and stuff. So I mean, I was making decent money, doing all these cover band shows and stuff, which wasn't exactly ideally what I wanted to do because I mean, you're playing someone else's music and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's like I'm still making a living playing drums. Like, maybe it's not exactly just like, playing the gospel stuff in Branson or whatever. It's like it's not my preferred style of music, what I want to be playing,
Hmm.
but still, like, there are people, spending 10 hours a day in an office filling out paperwork, or I was the guy, spending 16 hours a day swinging a sledgehammer and twisting a pipe wrench, and here I am doing something I love, even though it's not necessarily the music I love. I love playing drums, and I'm making a living at it.
Hmm.
So I did that for quite a while. Then guy he's the next original artist I played for came in 2017. A dude who was kind of making a go at it in the red dirt Texas outlaw, whatever you want to call it, country scene that is real hot now. Um, he was he called me. He had a Wednesday night house gig at one of the little bars up in Springfield, little clubs, and it was just it was basically just like kind of a paid rehearsal for him and the band. The bar would pay him a few $100, to be in there for a few hours, play some background music on a Wednesday night kind of thing. And he called me. Well, actually, he Facebook messaged me. It was like an hour to downbeat on the show, and he's like, "Hey, my now former drummer, because he's fired, he's like, just told me, oh, I can't come tonight." He's
Oh
like, "So
no.
I'm here set up with no drummer, your reputation says you're the guy. I was like, I'm I'm on the way. So I had the little Ludwig breakbeats kit that Questlove designed. There's a little tiny kit that is made to be, like transport around in like cities where people are taking public transport. So I mean, you can carry the whole thing with one hand, a little tiny kit. So I
Cool.
show up with that and played played the show with him, and he's like, "All right, that was great. So you want to come play for me?" It's like, if you're paying, I'm playing. Yeah. So that and we ended up going on a 6 week tour. I always feel weird about saying tour when it's not like, to me, like tour, you have, sponsors and buses and stuff like that, but
Right.
we were road dates. We spent almost 7 weeks on the road in 2017. We went from where we were at Southwest Missouri, worked our way through up through like Kansas City, over through Kansas, over into Colorado, Denver, all the way up into Wyoming and Montana. Played shows all through up there. There's actually some pretty solid music scenes out there, and they hire bands because I mean the population of Wyoming is, the whole state is less than most cities, so there's
Right.
like they hire their entertainment and stuff for the like in Jackson Hole, like the popular areas and stuff. They hire their entertainment from elsewhere around the country, and they book you for 2 week residency gigs, and you play Monday through Saturday, have Sunday off, then you play Monday through Saturday again, and that's your time. They pay you flat rate, they put you up in the hotels and stuff, they feed you and all that. It's a solid gig.
Hmm.
So we did that, and then we worked our way all the way east, up all the way through like all the Midwestern states, all the way over to Grantville, Pennsylvania. We ended up over there, and then worked our way back through West Virginia and Kentucky and back home, and that was a 7 week thing we were out playing, and it was it was pretty cool. It was wild. You're meeting new people all the time, and
Hmm.
doing that. But road life is tough, especially, when you're traveling we were traveling in a Suburban. We had four guys traveling in a Suburban,
Okay.
and luckily, we all got along great and stuff. But the dude that I was playing for, I'll leave his name out of it.
Yep.
He he's a guy who had to has never had to do the grind and
Right.
just deal with things sucking in his life. He comes from both sides of his family. His grandparents are extremely wealthy, and he's always had that to fall back on. So it's like, oh, I
Right.
want to try this today. Okay, great. I don't have to worry about anything. Not like, he never had to. If something starts sucking, he doesn't enjoy it anymore. He could just quit.
Right.
And so he realized while we were out, like, man, this road life thing, it's tough. And we get back, and he kind of started ghosting everybody until we're like, oh well, I guess this is over. And
Interesting.
so then I just went back to the same old cover band subbing thing. And then one of my longtime friends that I met while I was at Guitar Center, a fellow named Jake Stringer. He phenomenal drummer, just one of the best drummers that I know. But he decided that he wanted to give a he ended up it was funny because when I first met him, I sold him a purple sparkle drum kit at the Guitar Center, and he was playing in like a heavy metal band.
Nice.
And he had this long hair, playing heavy metal music, double bass, blast beats. I mean, the dude just has more chops than a meatpacking plant. Just, I mean, monster player.
Yeah.
And but somehow he got the call because he was working at Guitar Center then later at this time, and working in those places, gigs can pop up. You never know who you're gonna meet, and David Allen Coe, his band, a lot of them are from the Southwest Missouri area. Country legend, hot mess of a person David Allen Coe is, but he's a somebody. I mean, he's a household name. And but Jake got like, hey, David needs a drummer starting in a few days. So Jake's like, okay, I'll do it. It's a salary gig and stuff. So he went and he did that for about as long as anyone ever plays for David. He did it for about a year. And, but that kind of really changed a lot in Jake's life musically, and he decided, man, I want to write some songs, and be, not necessarily be the guy out front because I want the spotlight or anything. Because that's not, he's like, I have a lot to say, musically. I want to write some songs. So he
Cool.
started doing that, and about that time he was writing some songs, was putting a band together, and Jake being such a professional drummer in his own right, he was real picky on drummers. And the guy he had just he was fine, but he just wasn't
Mm,
a pro to
doing
speak.
the
He was
job,
a
yeah.
fine bar band drummer, but he wasn't a guy that you are going to be able to take to the next step with you.
Right.
And so Jake, we ran into each other, went to a show in Springfield. YD Morgan is the band name. He's a phenomenal like outlaw honky tonk country artist. YD Morgan was playing the show, and I run into Jake there. I had no idea that he was going to be there, and he's like, "Man, I almost called you the other night." I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Yeah, I'm making some changes to the band." He's like, and I was going through drummers in my head that I would actually hire. He's like, and the only one that I could come back on in my head was you, like here locally. He's like, and there are some phenomenal drummers around the area. He's like, but you know, it's more about the right fit. It's like you can have because there are I know so many guys who could just play circles around me technically and stuff, but
Hmm.
in certain areas, it's like sometimes it's just the right fit. That's what the chemistry and the fit is right. And Jake's like, you're the only guy. He's like, you want to get together and try some stuff out. And I was like, heck yeah, man, because I mean, one of my favorite people, and great music. So I did that, and this was a oh 18, I think, when I started playing with Jake. We I got together with him, and we just kind of tried it out. It was like, yeah, this is gonna work out. And so I started playing with him. He had just they were just wrapping up recording on his second EP. The first one, it was kind of one of those things where it was done super low budget, and all the songs at some point they'll be re-recorded.
Hmm.
But the second one, the second EP, called "Howdy We've Been Expecting You," it's so good. And Jake played drums on it. Because he was halfway through recording all the drum part stuff when he hired me, and he's like, we talked about it. He's like, man, he's like, if it's cool with you, he's like, I'm just gonna finish all these out. I'm like, dude, yeah, dude, I mean, my ego's not that fragile. Like,
Hmm.
it's your music. Like, if you want to play drums on all of them, like, yeah, dude, it's your thing. So we did that. Album came out. It's so good, and it's still, I mean, people loved it. And I spent the next few years just running around with Jake, playing all over the country. I mean, played a lot of places, a lot of cool shows, got to open up for some really cool people, and just making music, with one of your best friends and the other guys in the band. Ultimately, best friends too. Like the bass player with him now, I got that bass player the gig. This guy I worked with for many years. Is the bass player. Like he and I have played anything from gospel to thrash music to country together. So I mean, we get on stage together and we just mesh. It's like it doesn't matter what we're playing. We know what the other guy's gonna do. It's
That's
a
cool.
that wonderful connection that just comes with time and experience of playing with somebody.
Hmm.
And I did that with Jake, and I was loving life, loving everything about it. But then in June of 21, well, actually toward the end of May 2021, my dad started failing. He started going downhill, and he had been living in Florida with my sister, and we moved him up to Missouri with me to stay with me and my wife, and we moved him up there the like the fall of 20, and he started really going downhill and failing, and I I wasn't handling it well. I mean, like something, like my dad, he's my own personal superhero. It's like, and to see, this person who's such, been the strong and just the epitome of strength, and being, I'll keep this PG, but as being the bad dude,
Hmm.
life, is like to see him, failing and weakening and stuff. It just, man, it just mess my head up in a bad way. And I uh I quit on Jake, and it was a really messed up way that I did it and stuff, because and I was like, oh, I can't, just be like, because looking back, and I've matured much since then. You never stop growing in life. At
Of
least you
course.
shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I was like, But we had a little bit of issues with the guy who we had that was wanting to work on doing some sound and recording stuff with us, and this dude and I just weren't really meshing as far as, what, was going on. And I like he kind of looked at it as I'm the dude, on the console. I should be, I get the final say and everything. I'm like, dude, you're just the button pusher. You're not a producer or anything. Basically, you sit there like, Jake tells me what to do. He tells you what to do. Like I'm here to play drums. You're here to record it, like kind
Yeah,
of thing. And
right.
but it wasn't a big deal. And that guy and I were friends, and we still are and stuff. But I kind of used that as a scapegoat to, not show, oh, weakness. I'm too macho to show weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And I quit Jake because my dad had just he had fallen and was we were trying to get him figured out medically and stuff, and we were supposed to leave for a run in Texas, and I messaged Jake and I was like, dude, like I'm not coming. I'm done. Like just deal with sound guys. I was like, I'm not gonna, I'm not riding around in the because we were in a Sprinter van, but I'm like, I'm not spending all this time on the road, stuff with like I'm not doing this, which was total BS. But again, it was a very unhealthy and unprofessional way I handled myself. The real problems I had going on, of
Yeah.
trying to deal with my dad being on his way out and stuff, and but the guy who was playing lead guitar in the band, which is another dude that I linked up with the band. He's one of those guys who you can put him on any instrument on the stage, and he can play it better than the person who's actually playing it. Like he's just one of these dudes that you look at and you're like, man, I hate you because he can
Yeah.
play everything and he's phenomenal at all of it.
Yeah.
So he was able to just jump right over to drums, and he still plays drums for Jake to this day. But then a few weeks later, Dad, we had to put him in the hospital, but he ended up passing away on July 19th of 21, and
Mm-hmm.
Jake and everything, and the guys in the band, them being great people, word passed, they all come over. They're like, dude, we all, hugged it out, and talked stuff and everything. And I was like, man, that's the real reason, like all stuff. And he's like, and Jacob lost his dad a few years prior, and we all go through when
Of course. Yeah.
it's a part. It's a part of life that unfortunately, we're all going to get our turn with, losing, whoever it is in your family or your life who's like your, personal Superman, and it just totally takes the wind out of you for a while. So,
Yeah.
um, we talked, we all hung out, and Jake and I to this day, we're great friends. He I just went a couple weeks ago and I played some shows with him. He calls me fill in a bunch because the dude who's playing drums now he's getting ready to get married, and he's working a job at a music store teaching drums, bass, and guitar. I think that's that he all of it. But so he's not able to make a lot of the shows, and Jake calls me up and I go and play with him, and it's great as ever. I mean, we get along, and Jake's become one of probably two or three people in my life, that I sit there, you just completely open up to. And it's the same
Mm-hmm.
way, like on those late night drives back after a show, everyone else will be in the back of the Sprinter van passed out, and he'll be driving, I'll be riding shotgun, and it's just like these deep, great, talks, more like a therapy session than anything, which
Yeah.
is, I mean, having that kind of connection with the people off stage when you get on stage, I mean,
Oh
that
yeah.
it translates to the stage.
Totally.
So I then there was one other guy artist that I played for. Yeah, I'll not mention his name because I don't. It's not like I hate him or anything, but he's something. I'll just say like he's a lot. Like
Okay.
as far as handling stuff, he's a genuinely good guy, but I just don't think in a lot of ways. I just don't think he gets it. A lot of it, I don't think clicks in his. And but I got man, I don't even remember how that one came about. It was one of those referral things. Someone's like, hey, he's the guy if you need a drummer. So he gets a hold of me, and his show, it's really professional in the sense that he's got we got the MacBook back there, and the I think it's Ableton they run, whatever. But it's think like each show, they're not firing any tracks or samples out to the front of house, but um, everyone in the band, you all got it sends a click to everyone's ears, and but each song, the he has a full light rig and everything, and it's got a choreographed show per song, and so I've got a talkback mic back there, and I'm basically, I'm directing the whole show on the call, like on the fly. I'm watching I'm watching the clock, and I'm like, okay, guys, we're gonna skip this song, we're gonna do this, or hey, you know, we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
jam this song out a little bit because we need to kill another 45 seconds
Yep.
to break. But the thing with that is every song being mapped out and having a show like that, it's got to be the exact same every time. I mean, you got to be perfect every time because if
Right.
you're not, it throws everything off.
Right.
And but I had it set up where I could like if something happened, and somebody did get off, like if he, as the singer or whatever, missed a cue coming back in on a vocal part or something, where normally if you're just jamming with a band, you would just, we're just going to play the hook line of the chorus again, and come back into it next time. So, but you can't do that when everything's on a grid. But we had it set up where I could just kill the click that was going to everybody on the computer, and I had a auxiliary click that I run control off my hi hats that I have running into my mixer that goes just to my ear. So if something crazy would happen, I would just get in talk back like, "Hey guys, killing the click, I've got it," and then I just start it on mine where I still keep the band on cue and on time, and I could even reach over, and just tap on the light program on the screen. I could like manually play with the light show. So I mean, I'd be
That's
sitting,
cool. Yeah.
playing a song, and I'm coming like, okay, strobes. So I'm like wearing 20 hats doing that, which was fun. It was really cool, and man, we played all over the place. I mean, and a lot. I mean, we would go out for a couple months at a time, and
Wow.
I mean, there was one time we did it was like 28 shows in 30 days, kind of thing. I mean, just a lot. But that was the bass player and guitar player from that band are still great friends of mine. We're actually getting ready to work with another guy on another project, do some recording and stuff for him. But
Cool.
that was a that was really cool, and it was a salary gig. Get instead of oh, this is how much you're getting paid per show and stuff. We you know get paid your salary every Friday. Just like if you have a direct deposit from your regular job.
Mm-hmm.
Everything on the road expense wise was covered. I mean, if we stopped at a gas station, you're buying drink, snacks paid for. Dinners paid for. I mean, the money
Cool.
you made was in your pocket. It was great in all those regards. But it kind of came to a head one like just there was some stuff about the business side of things and everything that you know we just kind of butted heads on. Not that I was right and he was wrong, or that he was you know vice versa. It's just you know we weren't the best fit on the personality level. I mean, you get on stage and we put on a great show, but you know it's like you deserve somebody behind the drums for you that is you know 100% into it. Like, and I'm not. Like, I'm here and I'm doing a job. Like
Right.
I I couldn't care less if I ever played these songs again. Like, but these are your songs, your babies. It's your passion. Like, and you deserve somebody who shares that with you, like I do with Jake when I play with him.
Yeah.
Uh, so we parted ways, and since then I moved back because I was still in Missouri at the time. I moved back down here to Arkansas because my wife's family and everyone's from here, and like with Dad having passed away, and my only sister lives in Florida, and then the extended family on my dad's side, all that's left is they live up in New Jersey. Like there was really nothing holding me in Southwest Missouri except for I like it there, and oddly enough, there's a pretty decent music scene there, and I've developed a name over the years as a guy who can be called. But
Mm-hmm.
we moved down here because it's better for the family environment for my wife, my daughter. With her parents, her grandparents, all the aunts and uncles and cousins and all that. Everyone's down here, so but I'm only a few hours away from up there, so I still get a lot of calls, and I just have to tell people that you got to pay me a little bit more to make the trip worth it, and
Mm-hmm.
I still play quite a bit up there. Haven't really found much here. Central Arkansas, oddly enough, I've found one musician around here that I'm like, man, that guy's got it. But most of them are just like, you know, guys in their 60s who like to make some noise on a Friday night, and it's like there's not really, and I can't figure out why, because Little Rock's a good sized city, but I can't figure out why there's not really much of a pro scene around here. But it's not too far said to go up to home, or Tulsa actually has a booming country scene and stuff, which I'm into. So
Cool.
like I still play plenty, travel plenty, but I don't have a like a permanent home as far as a band right now. I'm kind of freelancing. I
Mm-hmm.
do some session work here and there, or just pick up the sub gigs when I get them.
I mean, by the sounds of your story, it seems like things just kind of keep falling into place somehow. Just like,
Yeah,
whether it be
it's
meeting someone at the store or just getting a call. It's just, yeah.
and that's it's all about the relationships. And there's an old saying, of course everyone's like, it's all who you know, but that's not it. It's not who you know, it's who knows you, and who knows you and has good things to say about you. Because I
Yeah.
mean, word gets around real fast in the music world. I mean, it's a small world.
Mm-hmm.
Even like and it's like if you're a if you're paying the butt to work with, or your gear, your skills, or anything aren't up to par, that word's going to get around fast.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if you are, you know, people talk, and they're going to be like, hey, I need someone. The same few names always pop up.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
anytime that I ever see anyone looking for a sub for any instrument, it's always like the same couple names for no matter what instrument. Is like, because any scene, any local area, it's like you may have plenty of players, like, but there's just a few that are like really players, who
Mm-hmm.
you can just send stuff to, and they're just gonna be able to jump on the stage, and they're gonna nail it, and you can count on them.
Yeah.
And
And
same thing, session work. You get called to do session work. I mean, time is money there. They're booking the studio out for a block of hours. It's like, and if I go in there and I take 4 hours to cut a drum track, that's I'm wasting their time and money. I mean,
yeah.
I'm typically a first or second pass kind of guy. We go in there and we'll listen to it, make my chart, and we you know if I don't get it on the first take, run a second and then maybe a third, just to have some punch in options kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the last recording session I did that took more than a few takes. And what you get called for those, because it's like, great, now we can get the guitars going, we can get everything else going.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, a lot of years putting in work and stuff, but establishing relationships, and making himself. Oh, buddy of mine just showed up here. He's gonna jump. He's gonna
Sure.
jump in here, but we can
Cool.
keep talking. We're good.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I mean, I think it's also just like a level of professionalism that people bring to the table too. Like, if you show up, obviously, the musicians are very well known for not being on time. So showing up on time and
Oh,
actually just like, as soon as you screw people over once, it's just people don't
oh,
want to
it's
work with you again. That's just
well,
kind of.
it's like when you say leaving, like if you have a bad experience at a restaurant,
Yep.
you go to a restaurant and they screw up your food, the staff sucks, whatever. You're gonna whine and complain and tell everyone in the world. You might even go on Google, Facebook, leave a bad review. But if it's great, you don't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. So it doesn't take long. Like if you leave a sour taste in one person's mouth, and it gets around real fast. And
Yep.
that's exactly it. And like you said, the being on time. There is nothing in this world that I hate more than being late.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost unhealthy how much it bothers me. And so yeah, more often than not, especially like if I'm subbing or I'm transferring, like driving myself to a show, like I'll be there because the drums take up the most time and the most space up on the stage. They always go in the back, and
Hmm.
so I always get there early enough. I mean, I'll have the drum kit completely set up and ready to go before they get there and start loading in anything else.
Right.
And that's one of those things people are like, dude, it's one of those little things that they're like, man, we appreciate that. That's awesome, because now we don't have to. We're not all trying to work around each other and tripping over drum stands and stuff. Like, everything's set. Then I can sit back and kind of chill and do some last minute homework, listening to the songs or something if I need to,
Hmm.
while they do their thing, and then we're off and running.
Totally. And I mean, I won't take too much more of your time, but I do have a couple questions if you're open to it
Yeah,
as well. Cool.
yeah, fire
I'm
away.
just when you mentioned that, you were brought away from music for going to Texas and going to Marine Corps as well, like in
Hmm.
those sorts of times where, you were away from music, how did you, I guess, I don't want to say cope, but was there a part of you that was really longing for something that, you just felt like you couldn't have at that time in your life?
Absolutely. And honestly, like the last year or so down here in Arkansas has been a lot like that, even though I said I have traveled back home and played a lot of shows and stuff. But I've actually found in a weird way those downtimes from actually playing a whole lot is when I've done my best growth and maturing like as a player,
Interesting.
because I'm constantly listening, finding new music and stuff, and you find new people and new music to draw inspiration from. And
Mm-hmm.
like just recently, I mean, so I've been at this drumming thing for about 30 years now, and I found a guy who plays a lot in the Tulsa scene and plays. He's the drummer for a red dirt country band. Jason Boland and the Stragglers is their name. They're kind of icons in that Texas red dirt scene.
Sweet.
And oddly enough, I've opened a couple shows for this band, but I had to leave to get on the road to the next show or to get home after our set. Never got to stick around and watch them. Um, I started watching this guy on like his Instagram and stuff, and dude is out of this world good.
Mm.
But his playing style and stuff is so unconventional and his setup and stuff. And it's like looking at him like it's just this whole new inspiration and stuff. And yeah, downtimes like that. When I was overseas and stuff, you're obviously limited what you can consume, music wise, especially at the time, it was, this was early 2000s when it all first kicked off. But yeah, I mean, just I find immersing myself in music, like in new music and discovering new music and new players and stuff, and actively listening. I mean, you can learn just as much, probably a whole lot more actually, by just shutting up and putting your sticks down and listening and watching other people and drawing new inspiration. And I find when I do that, then I get on board and start playing next. Like I have this whole new kind of bag of tricks, that I can kind of pull from, and it's all, you just keep making deposits into that bank, that account of your playing tricks. And
Mm-hmm.
that that should never stop. I mean, you should be the most experienced, best player you've ever been in your life, the moment before you drop dead. I mean,
Right.
you never stop learning and growing and stuff. And if you do and you lose that passion, then might be time to do something else. But
Mm-hmm.
like there's a one of the kind of icons of the drum world and stuff, educators. He just passed away like this past week of pancreatic cancer. And someone was telling a story about they went to visit him in the hospital, and this was like a few days before he died. And they're walking down the hallway and they hear these sticks going on a practice pad, and they're like, what is going on? And they walk in and he's sitting on his hospital bed with the sticks on his pad just playing.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm practicing. It's like, he was under no illusion that, my days are, i'm I've got one foot out the door. But he's like, the only way the passion's going to die is with me. I mean, he's on his
Yeah.
deathbed practicing and playing. And
That's cool.
that, I mean, yeah. And I love watching. It can be, doesn't even have to be music that I really like, but I love watching other players, and particularly in stuff that I don't typically listen to, because there's something to learn from everybody, and pull inspiration from.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, that's it. Like if there's a downtime where like I can't play, like here where I'm living now, like I don't have a drum kit set up here. There's not really room and stuff, but I got my practice pad. I listen to tons of music and stuff, and I mean I'm constantly growing my knowledge base
Mm-hmm.
of music.
So then,
And
on that note, then, because you say there's something to learn from everyone, I'm curious what the best lesson you've learned from another musician is.
um the best lesson I've learned from another musician is probably that it's not all about you, to learn how to play, learn how to take direction for one. It's like, if you're, especially if you're the hired gun and stuff, you play what you're told. I mean, like, if they don't like something, you play it. And a lot of guys can't handle that.
Right.
I mean, how many times you see like on Reddit post drummers be like, oh, I am the click, or the tempo is what I say it is. It's like, dude, you're there, you're hired to do a job, do your job. And but yeah, I mean, one of the probably the best lesson that I can think of is pretend you're a listener to the music and be like, if I were in the crowd listening to this, would I want to hear this coming from behind the kit? You know, it's like
Right.
if you're playing a song like Back in Black, nobody wants to hear some crazy double bass fill in the middle of Back in Black. You know, it's like, you know, you're not there to serve yourself. You know, put your ego away
Hmm.
and play music. That, and I'm going back to something Rich Redmond told me when we were hanging out one day. We were here in a studio down in Fayetteville, Arkansas. He was playing at the amphitheater up there, and picked him. Actually, my buddy who just got here with me, we both picked him up, and I went over to the studio and spent an afternoon playing drums with Rich and having him show us just how much we don't know. But one of the best lessons I ever got, he told me, he's like, man, it's like, and he's like, I'll write it sometimes on my snare head or like at the top of a chart that I hang up and stuff. It's like just big bold words, you know, no groove killers. It's like, okay, what's a groove killer? It's like, well, if you're out here in the crowd, you know, if there are people there who are not a drummer, you know, and they're just listening to the music, you know, they're bobbing their heads like, and you do some fill, just, you know, some self-serving egotistical crap, you know, and all of a sudden they stop, you know, feeling that groove, and their eyes go to you, man, you just completely killed their groove. You just killed the whole vibe.
Hmm. That
Like
that
that learning how to stay out of the way of everyone else on stage is probably the most important
yeah.
lesson I can give to anybody. Is like, you know, the only person that cares about your cool chops are you, or maybe a drummer buddy if you're just hanging out in a room, you know, and you're trading licks or something. But
Yeah.
unless you're Vinny Colaiuta or something like that, and that's your job, is, you know, people hire you for that. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear that.
It brings me right back. I studied sound design for visual media at Vancouver Film School here, and like the one sort of big thing that they tell you more or less is like, you know, a sound guy is doing his job when people aren't paying attention to the sound. And I think it's like,
Exactly.
as soon as people are, or as soon as, yeah, the audience's eyes come towards you and they're like looking at you for the reason of like bringing
Yeah.
attention to you, then yeah, that's
Then you failed at your job. Yeah, it's
yeah,
like
pretty much.
if I'm doing my job as the drummer, aside from the part of the night where they introduce me,
Hmm.
or they or you know, the final ending of the night, the big trash can ending, you know, which is your moment to shine, you know, flip your sticks around, do the big
Yeah.
Tom Phil stuff. Like, aside from that, if like nobody should walk away from that show thinking about me. They should be thinking about the whole experience, you know, like,
Totally.
man, the band sounded great, the song was great and stuff. They The only people who should even have any kind of thought in their mind as to the drums would be other drummers who may be in the crowd. You know, be like, man, you know, that kit sounded great. That snare was popping. You know, he, you know, had a great groove, whatever. But your average concert goer, they shouldn't know or care that I'm having any thoughts about me one way or the other. Like,
Yep.
I should be just like, I might as well not even be there, kind of thing. Like, their attention is on the front man and hearing the song and enjoying themselves.
Yep. As it should be. And I guess yeah, I'll let you go from here. But any last words that you're hoping to share, or just kind of put out there?
Uh Man, I think I've rambled quite a bit, but really, it's like I said, just never stop learning. I mean, you
Yeah.
can be, you know, the best drummers in the world, you know, still learn and take lessons with their peers. I have a guy who he moved out to Springfield. Last real quick story. He moved to Springfield area in 2020 amidst the pandemic because he was living in LA playing and teaching full time out there, like a high level. He graduated from Berkeley, like went to Berkeley for drums and all that. Graduated from Berkeley, ended up teaching at Berkeley for a bit.
Cool.
Then moved to LA, spent like 20 years in LA, you know. But the pandemic completely shut everything down out there, you know. And try living in LA with no money coming in.
Right.
And so he had made some connections with a couple people up in Missouri and Branson, and they're like, man, it's not the coolest place, but you can move here and you can live pretty cheap, you know. You can, you know, you can play a few shows a week and you can get by here, whereas, you know, out there you might be living under a bridge if you're lucky. So
Right.
he did, and one of my uh one of my longtime best drumming friends, actually the kit that I play now belonged to a guy that we all called Homie, I met him
Hmm.
through the Guitar Center. He passed away. Had a heart attack at the end of 2020, but he left this drum kit to me. The first time I met him in Guitar Center, he told me about the kit he was buying heads for him, and they're 1986 Yamaha recording customs. And I'm on the spot. I was like, man, you got to let me buy that kit, because he bought it brand new in '86 when he worked at the drum shop in town. And the whole time I knew him, I was always like, man, when are you gonna sell them to me? And he's like, they'll go to you someday. And then had a sudden tragic, heart attack, just did. But they came to me afterwards, which I play them now, and it's amazing having them. But the
Hmm.
guy who this dude who just moved there from LA, he ended up with a spot playing for the band that homie was playing for. And first time I watched this guy, I was like, oh my god, like this area has never seen a drummer like this. Like, what
Hmm.
is he doing here? And I got to know him real well. In a local music store was looking for a drum teacher, and as I was saying earlier, I'm not much of a teacher, but I was like, I might know a guy, and got in there. And he plays full time with this band. They toured. They just got back from New York last week, but he's got like 35 full time students now. Plays all the time and stuff. But it's cool. He's like, man, it's all connections. He's like, had I not met, he's like, I don't know what I'd be doing. He's like, you hooked me up with that, and I was like, well, I'll tell you. He's like, you need anything from me? I was like, actually, yeah. I was like, man, let's. I want some lessons. Like, I want you to show me, because, you know, I've never studied with somebody on that level. Like, it's like I'm accomplished. I'm a pro, I guess you could say, by standards. Like, I mean, I know what I'm doing. Like, but
Hmm.
I also, you can only self-diagnose so much. And I mean, you don't you there's a lot of stuff you can't see that you may be doing that could be improved on.
Yep.
So I've got a friend who owns a studio up home, and I was like, hey man, can we use your space? And of course, like, yeah man, all good, because I'll do various sessions for him and stuff, so we have a good relationship. He'll let me, give me a key to the place. I can get in there whenever I want, as long as he doesn't have clients in there. And went in there with this dude, and set up a couple kits. And even after playing for 30 years, I walked out of there feeling like I was a brand new student. Like,
Hmm.
just blew my mind with different things that he showed me, and stuff that I didn't even realize, I wasn't necessarily doing wrong, but could do better and more efficiently. And yeah, so coming back full circle, like,
Yeah.
never stop learning. Never be so full of yourself that you think, oh, I don't need anyone help or anything, because there's always not only someone better, but there's always something to learn. I mean, they say Tiger Woods, has a golf coach. No doubt he can beat him at a game, but the guy, a coach, someone who can analyze what you're doing and teach you, is totally different from just another player.
Yep.
And always seek growth, and always just look to improve, and keep that fire burning, because you let that fire go out and you get stale and stagnant, and you're not loving it anymore, then the point's lost.
It's true. Well, I've definitely learned a lot from you through the conversation, man. So thank you so much, Mule. It's super inspiring story, marked with a lot of humility and just cool synchronicities that came through for your life and just gave you so many amazing opportunities. And yeah,
And
man, I only just wish you the best going forward, and hopefully we'll find a way to keep in touch as well. And yeah,
absolutely. And man, this is like the first of these things I've really done, so I appreciate you having me. And I'll shoot you an email. And I may have some other people you can talk to, if you're looking for more people.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I know a lot of people with similar stories and stuff that are, in the grand scheme of thing, just small town nobodies who have a lot of great stories and great info and stuff. So yeah, man, let's stay in touch, dude. It's
Totally.
been great.
And I mean, hey, even the small town nobody is still somebody to someone, and I think that's
Abs
a big thing
Absolute,
as
and
well.
everyone was that guy at some point.
Totally.
Everyone's comes from that background somewhere. So
Yeah. Well, beautiful Mule. Thank you so much, man. And
all right,
yeah, all the best to you and your family, and we'll keep in touch.
great man. I appreciate it.
Totally. Me too. Take care.
Later.
See ya. All right. Uh, thank you so much, Mule, for tuning in for that chat. If you enjoyed, leave a like, leave a subscribe, a comment, whatever. If you're interested in having a conversation with me too, please shoot me a message. This is a podcast designed for musicians, by musicians, just sharing stories, learning more about one another, and recognizing, just how similar we really are to one another. There is so much in Mule's story that opened my eyes to other experiences that exist out there, but also just, how much I related to his feelings of imposter syndrome and stepping up on stage and being like, can I really do this? And how sometimes family comes first, and there's things that, as much as music is an important aspect of all of our lives, it's also important to remember, there's other people too, and sometimes priorities happen, and we're all just human, growing in this journey of life. So thanks so much. My name's Aiden. This is Studio Raphael, and hopefully I'll see you around the studio sometime. Take care.